Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If transmigrated into One Piece and became a Marine is now on hold, since we've at the end of the story. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if a venerated soul reincarnated in Danmachi world? What if transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 91, Beating Up the White Dragon Emperor. Whether God lives or dies doesn't matter to me, Kokobile continued, his voice rising in a frenzy. What I can't accept is that they think the war should end just because God and the Satans are dead. I won't tolerate it. I won't. Kokobile's voice became a desperate cry. If the war had continued, we would have been victorious. Everyone finally understood. Kokobile believed that the fallen angels were the true victors of the Great War. He couldn't accept that the three factions had agreed to a ceasefire at the last moment. To him, it was like handing over the fruits of victory to their enemies. That's why he was so desperate to reignite the war, to achieve his twisted goal of continuing the conflict. Roy had heard enough of his story. He glanced at Isteth. Understanding his intent, Isteth drew her rapier, ready to deliver the final blow to Kokobile. But just then, crack! 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 A sound like shattering glass echoed through the air as a large hole was torn in the spatial barrier. Here we go, Roy thought. A white figure emerged from the rift in the barrier and flew towards Isteth with incredible speed. Roy intercepted him. Clang! A deafening clash resounded as Roy's Ice Rose sword met the newcomer's attack. Who are you? Isteth demanded, her eyes narrowed. I am Albion, the newcomer replied. Azazel has asked me to bring Kokobile back. Would you mind handing him over? Albion was the name of the White Dragon Emperor's sacred gear. The newcomer's true identity was Valley Lucifer, leader of Valley team of the Cows Brigade. Kokobile has been causing trouble on my territory. You think I'll just hand him over? Do you think you have that much pull? Roy scoffed. Although Kokobile hadn't caused any significant damage to Kuo Town yet, handing him over wouldn't be a problem. After all, Roy didn't dislike Valley. But more importantly, Roy wanted to fight Valley and test his own strength. He hadn't had a chance to go all out yet. Even he wasn't sure of the full extent of his power. However, I will let you take Kokobile if you can defeat me, Roy declared, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. Valley understood his intentions. Very well. Roy Lucifuge, I shall defeat you here and now, Valley declared, pointing at Roy with unwavering confidence. Roy smirked and flew towards Valley, their eyes meeting in a silent challenge. Roy. Asia clasped her hands together, her eyes filled with worry. Don't worry, Asia. Roy will win, Siko reassured her. Why not just hand over Kokobile? Tsubaki Shinra wondered, glancing at the fallen angel, who lay on the ground, barely clinging to life. It seemed to her that handing him over would avoid a conflict with this new enemy, who appeared far stronger than Kokobile. There's no stopping a true warrior's thirst for battle, Isteth commented with a chuckle. She understood this desire all too well. Her words enlightened the others. In the sky, the tension between Roy and Valley crackled. Roy made the first move. Secret Art, Ice Princess Rose. Two translucent ice roses materialized in his hands, one in each, and shot towards Valley with incredible speed. If they touched Valley, he would be instantly frozen. However, Valley was incredibly fast. The two ice roses, despite their speed, couldn't catch him. Valley closed the distance between them. I can't let him touch me, Roy thought. One of the abilities of the White Dragon Emperor's armor was Divide, which halved the opponent's power upon contact. And it activated every 10 seconds. If hit by this ability, one's power would be quickly depleted. In the original story, Kokobile had fallen victim to this ability, leading to his swift defeat at Vala's hands. Moreover, the halved power was absorbed by Valley, further increasing his strength. Without a countermeasure, facing Valley was a sure path to defeat. Roy couldn't let Vala touch him. Secret Art, Ice 9 Dragons. 9 ice dragons materialized and charged towards Valley. But Vala simply flew straight into the ice dragons. Crash! 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 Ice shards scattered through the air. Vala had shattered the ice dragons. However, after destroying the second and third dragons, his momentum faltered, and he was engulfed by the remaining ones. Crack! 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 The sound of freezing echoed as Vala's body was encased in ice. He plummeted towards the ground. Is it over? The girls below wondered, seeing Valley frozen solid. They knew how powerful this technique was. No one had ever broken free from it before. Isdeath stared at the ice with a fervent gaze. Roy had been teaching her this technique, but she hadn't mastered it yet. Her control over ice was still too crude. Roy, however, shook his head, hearing their comments. He didn't believe Valley was defeated so easily. As if to confirm his suspicions, a brilliant light emanated from within the ice. Then, Vala's voice boomed through the air, filled with power and authority. I, who shall awaken? I am the heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. I envy the infinite, and I pursue the dream. I shall become the white dragon of supremacy. And I shall sink you into the depths of the abyss. Juggernaut drive. Crack! 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 As Vala finished his chant, cracks appeared on the ice mountain. Boom! The ice shattered, and Valley emerged, his form transformed. He had activated his Juggernaut drive. In this state, Valley could unleash power rivaling a peak-level ultimate class devil. However, it couldn't be maintained for long, as it consumed his life force. Valley, having broken free, didn't hesitate. He charged towards Roy with even greater speed. Secret Art, Ice Archery. Roy conjured an ice bow and nocked an arrow. He loosed the arrow, which split into a barrage of icy projectiles. Valley, however, didn't dodge. He relied on his armor and flew straight through the rain of arrows. Thud! 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 He broke through the barrage and continued his assault. He reached Roy in an instant and threw a punch. The rapid series of events left the girls below speechless. They gasped as Vala's fist was about to connect. But Roy remained calm. He summoned his Ice Rose sword and parried the attack. The two clashed, their movements a blur. Bang! 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 Their battle was incredibly intense, exchanging countless blows in a matter of seconds. Roy couldn't shake Valley off and could only rely on his swordsmanship to defend himself. Valley threw another punch. Roy raised his sword to block, but... Crack! His Ice Rose sword shattered. Vala's fist struck Roy. It's over. Vala grinned triumphantly from within his armor. He had touched Roy. Divide, the White Dragon Emperor's armor declared. Roy felt his power diminish, halved by Vala's ability. Valley, on the other hand, absorbed Roy's lost power, becoming even stronger. Roy couldn't help but smile wryly. Despite his caution, he had been touched. It seems I have to use that technique, he thought. I didn't want to resort to this, but I have no choice, Roy declared. Mahapadma. The entire space within the barrier was engulfed in an icy blue light. Everything froze. Only Roy could move freely. He had used Isdeath's technique, Mahapadma. And his version was even more potent than Isteth's, as evidenced by its wider area of effect. Now, it's time to end this, Roy said with a smirk. He snapped his fingers. Secret art, Ice 1,000-armed cannon. A 1,000-meter-tall cannon statue materialized, its countless arms raining down on Valley. Within seconds, Valley was pummeled with countless blows, driven deep into the earth, the ground cracking under the force of the assault. When Mahapadma's time-stop effect wore off, the girls saw that Valley had vanished from the sky, replaced by a massive crater. Only Isteth knew that Roy had used Mahapadma. Valley lay at the bottom of the crater, his body battered and bruised, his expression a mixture of shock and confusion. He had been so close to victory, having touched Roy and activated Divide. But then, he had been pummeled and sent crashing into the earth. Even his Juggernaut drive had been deactivated. What just happened? He mumbled, his voice weak. Partner, it seems you've encountered a time-stopping sacred gear, Albion, the White Dragon Emperor, said. There's a sacred gear that can stop time. Stop time. Vala finally understood how he had been defeated. But he was filled with frustration. He was supposed to be the strongest White Dragon Emperor in history. Yet, he had been defeated so easily by someone his own age, especially when he had been so close to victory. His confidence was shaken. Ha 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 ha. Roy burst into laughter, hearing Albion's assumption. I don't have such a sacred gear, he declared, flying down to the bottom of the crater and looking at Valley with a smug grin. In the original story, Gasper, when controlled by an enemy, had used his time-stopping ability on the Satans during a meeting. However, only Kaneko and a few others with weaker powers had been affected. The Satans themselves remained unaffected, simply because Gasper was too weak. No way. Vala said, refusing to believe him. Suit yourself. I'm not interested in revealing my abilities, Roy shrugged. Valley fell silent. Don't worry, someone will come for you soon, Roy reassured him before flying out of the crater. Roy Oniai-chan, are you alright? Are you hurt? Roy-sama, you were amazing. Roy-sama is so strong. The girls surrounded Roy as soon as he landed, their voices filled with concern and admiration. Don't worry, I'm fine, Roy chuckled. That guy is the one who's hurt. He won't be recovering for a while, he added, pointing at the crater. The girls were relieved to see he was unharmed. Just then. Crack. 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 Another hole appeared in the spatial barrier. A dark figure flew towards them. The girls tensed up, ready to fight. Don't worry, everyone, Roy said calmly. He knew who it was. Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels. He was a fallen angel who had fallen from grace to pursue his desires, but he was generally a laid-back and easygoing individual. Yo! Good evening, everyone. Azazel greeted them with a casual wave. Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels. Why are you here? Rias asked, then, noticing the barely conscious Kokobile, she understood. Well, it's just as you've guessed, Azazel admitted with a shrug. I noticed Kokobile's recent activities and intended to stop him, but it seems you beat me to it. To avoid unnecessary complications, I asked the White Dragon Emperor to bring Kokobile back. The girls understood. After all, Kokobile was a fallen angel cadre. If Azazel intervened directly, it might be seen as an act of aggression. And if news of this incident spread, it could lead to mistrust and tension between the three factions. A new war might even break out. But now, Azazel had no choice but to come, as Valley, whom he had entrusted with retrieving Kokobile, had been defeated. In that case, take them both, Roy said, gesturing towards Kokobile and Valley. Azazel was surprised by his easy agreement. Hadn't Roy said he would only release Kokobile if Azazel defeated him? Azazel knew he was no match for Roy. He couldn't even counter that time-stop technique. Seeing his confusion, Roy chuckled. I just wanted to fight that guy. Kokobile hasn't caused any real damage to Kuo Town anyway. If you don't take him back for treatment soon, he might actually die. Azazel looked at Roy thoughtfully. "Thank you, young man," he said with a smile. He picked up Kokobeel and then retrieved Vala from the crater. "I'll defeat you next time," Vala declared, looking at Roy with determination. "Ha, I'll be waiting," Roy replied with a grin. Azazel then left with Kokobeel and Valley. "Valley, what do you think of that young man?" Azazel asked. "He's strong. Very strong. Until I find a way to counter that technique, I'm no match for him," Valley admitted, his eyes closed. "Indeed, he's quite remarkable." Roy Lucifuge, Graphia's younger brother, one of the 5 young kings, Azazel mused. Vala etched that name into his memory. Chapter 92, Roy meets magical girl Seraphal. "Well, now that everything's settled, it's time for us to head back," Roy announced, watching Azazel depart with Kokobeel and Valley. He had enjoyed the fights, but his battle against Valley had highlighted a weakness. Without a proper sword, facing opponents with sacred gears was a disadvantage. His Ice Rose sword, though powerful, had been shattered by Valley. If he had wielded a sacred gear class sword, he was confident he could have defeated Vala with swordsmanship alone. And there would be many more armored opponents in the future, like Azazel and Sarorg. He decided to acquire a sacred gear class sword as soon as possible. They returned to the castle. "Rias, how are those two doing?" Roy asked, glancing at Zenobia and Irina. "They'll need a few more days to recover," Rias replied with a sigh. She had tried to comfort them, but they were still distraught over the loss of their god and hadn't responded to her words. "It's all right. We'll slowly guide them," Roy said, patting Rias's shoulder reassuringly. "I suppose that's all we can do," Rias agreed. The next morning, Roy and the girls were about to head to school with Rias when they saw Zenobia and Irina, already dressed in their school uniforms, standing beside Rias. "Rias, what's this?" Roy asked, confused. "Hee," Rias giggled, unable to contain her joy. "They've become my knights." She had filled the 2 vacant knight positions in her peerage. She was overjoyed. "Congratulations!" Roy offered his congratulations. "Pleased to meet you," Zenobia and Irina said in unison, bowing politely. Asia and the others were surprised. They hadn't expected the 2 girls to become devils. "Since we learned that God is no longer with us, we've lost our way and begged Ria-sama to accept us as her servants," Zenobia explained. "Now that God is gone, our lives are ruined. We can't go back. But is it truly right to join the devils?" Irina added, her brow furrowed with worry. "Don't worry. No one will bully you here," Roy reassured them with a smile. "Really? That's great." The 2 girls were relieved and looked at Roy with admiration. They remembered last night's battle. This man was incredibly powerful. Rias, hearing this, whispered to Roy, "They actually wanted to become your servants, but when they heard you didn't need any more, they agreed to become my knights." She was a bit annoyed. She had spent the entire night comforting the 2 girls, preparing their rooms, and attending to their needs. But when they finally approached her, they had asked to become Roy's servants. Fortunately, Aquino had told them that Roy didn't need any more servants, so they had settled for becoming Rias's knights. "Well, what can I say? My charm is irresistible," Roy joked with a shrug. Rias rolled her eyes at his smugness. Zenobia approached Asia. "I apologize, Asia. I always thought you had betrayed God. But now that God is gone, it means he didn't save you. I'm sorry." When they first met, Zenobia had wanted to eliminate Asia, the traitor. However, they had been easily defeated by Siko and Kaneo. So, they had retreated. But they still believed that Asia had betrayed God. For those in the church, their faith was everything. Believers had faith in God, and God would save them. "Don't say that, Zenobia-san," Asia replied with a gentle smile. "I'm content with my life now, even though I'm a devil. Meeting Roy and everyone here. I'm happy." Zenobia and Irina looked at Roy and smiled. "All right, it's time for school. Everyone, gather around, Roy announced, preparing to activate the teleportation magic. This time, not only Zenobia and Irina would be joining them at school. Makomo and Nezuko would also be attending. He hadn't had time to arrange for them to go to school before. And from the Akame ga Kill world, Kurom, Akame, and mine would also be going to school. After all, they were of school age. They all went to school together. Roy's peaceful daily life resumed. A month passed quickly. One day, after school, Roy returned to the Occult Research Club with Akame and the others. Get out of my way. No, you move. Let me in first. I should go in first. I was here first. Roy sighed, watching Saya and mine bickering at the doorway. He wasn't sure if it was because they had similar personalities or if they were simply incompatible. But Saya and mine, the two tsundere girls with pink pigtails, just couldn't get along. They argued about everything, especially after being assigned seats next to each other in class. My Garridos is the strongest. Humph. My pumpkin can take it down with a single shot. No way. My Garridos knows Hyper Beam. You're no match for it. Ha! I'm not as weak as you. Damn it. Saya gritted her teeth and reached for her pokeball, ready to teach mine a lesson. But then... Bunk! Bunk! Roy flicked both of them on the forehead. Cut it out, you two. Ow. The two girls clutched their heads, pouting at Roy. Roy sighed and patted their heads, calming them down. Just as he dealt with them, Akame tugged at his sleeve. I want meat, she declared. Akame, we'll be having dinner soon. Can you wait a bit? No, I want meat now. Akame shook her head, her eyes fixed on him. Roy sighed and took out a roasted suckling pig. Akame's eyes lit up at the sight of the meat, and she drooled. Sometimes, Roy felt like he was Akame's pet owner. Roy is so kind, Asia commented, her eyes filled with warmth as she watched him. Aika, Murayama, and Keikase nodded in agreement. Just then, the door to the Occult Research Club opened. Roy! Wani-chan! Kurom dashed in and hugged Roy. Being younger, she was in the same class as Kaneko. Wani-chan is eating meat. Roy, I want candy too, Kurom pleaded, clinging to him. Okay, here you go. But don't eat too much candy. It'll rot your teeth, Roy said, handing her a bag of candy. Roy-senpai, Kaneko greeted him. Oh, Kaneko wants some too? Here you go. Roy gave her a bag of candy as well. Thank you, Kaneko replied, blushing slightly as she took the candy. The door opened again. This time, it was Rias, Aquino, and Seiko. Honestly, Roy, you spoiled them too much, Rias commented, shaking her head as she saw the girls eating snacks. They're my beloved servants. Let's head back now, Roy said, standing up and preparing to activate the teleportation magic. Just then, a red magic circle appeared before them. A figure with crimson hair materialized within the circle. Oni-sama! Rias exclaimed. It was her older brother, Surzex Lucifer. It's quite lively here. Is there some kind of event going on? Surzex asked with a smile. Just messing around. What brings you here, Aniki? Roy asked his brother-in-law. I heard you defeated Kokobile and the White Dragon Emperor. That's quite impressive, Surzex said, changing the subject. Those two? Ha, I was just itching for a fight. I didn't cause any trouble for the underworld, did I? Roy shrugged. Don't worry, the incident was kept under wraps. Oh, that's good. I'm here on behalf of the underworld to formally invite you to the Three Factions Peace Treaty. And this time, it will be held at Kuo Academy, Surzex announced, his expression turning serious. The Three Factions Peace Treaty? Held at Kuo Academy? The girls were surprised. Why invite me? Wouldn't it be enough for you to attend? Roy asked. Since it was a peace treaty between the leaders of the three factions, the underworld already had Surzex and Serafal representing them. There shouldn't be a need for anyone else to attend. Well, you now possess the power to influence all three factions, Surzex explained with a smile. He was quite pleased with his brother-in-law. Especially after hearing about Roy's victory against the White Dragon Emperor. Roy's strength and the power of his peerage were undeniable. He was qualified to participate in the peace treaty. Roy understood and agreed without hesitation. In that case, I accept. Ah, that's great. Surzex exclaimed, then added, by the way, my little sister hasn't been causing you any trouble, has she? Rias puffed out her cheeks, annoyed that her brother would say such a thing. Oni-sama, how can you say that, she whined. Don't worry, Aniki. I can take care of Rias, Roy assured him. Roy, you too. Rias glared at him playfully. Roy and Surzex exchanged amused glances and laughed. That night, Rias arranged for Surzex to stay at the Occult Research Club. Surzex had wanted to stay at Roy's castle, but Roy declined, citing the inconvenience of having a male guest among so many girls. The three factions' peace treaty was scheduled for 3 days later, so they had some time to relax. The next day, Roy and the others went to school, while Rias showed Surzex around the academy. A magical girl photo shoot? As members of the photography club, we have to check it out. Yes. During break time, Roy overheard some girls talking about a magical girl event and became interested. He decided to go and see. Saya, mine, let's go check it out. Huh? Roy, are you interested in magical girls? Saya asked, surprised. Was this some new strange hobby of his? I'm a bit curious, but I'm more interested in the person cosplaying as a magical girl, Roy replied with a grin. They followed the girls and arrived at a classroom that was clearly used for performances. A girl dressed as a magical girl stood on a stage, posing and smiling for the cameras. The girls in the audience were taking pictures and admiring her. Serafal Leviathan. Roy instantly recognized the magical girl as Sona's older sister. She had black twin tails, a pink magical girl costume, and a star-shaped wand. She looked quite adorable. But she was rather short, probably no taller than 150 centimeters. So this is the magical girl Roy is interested in? She's not that impressive, Mine commented, although she didn't know what a magical girl was. She was confident she wouldn't lose to this girl in terms of cuteness. If it were me, I'd be much cuter. Saya added, surprisingly agreeing with Mine. Roy's lips twitched. She's a strong Mao-class devil, you know. Is it okay to say that about her, he wondered. What's going on here? Roy, why are you here? Sona, perhaps drawn by the crowd, approached them. I think you should deal with her first, Roy said, pointing towards the magical girl on stage. Sona turned around. Sona-chan. A figure leaped onto Sona, clinging to her. Ne-sama? Sona asked, her body stiffening. Yes. It's your beloved Ne-sama. Serafal exclaimed, hugging Sona tightly. The scene was a bit awkward. Sona-chan, what's wrong? We're finally reunited. You should be happier. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a Yuri relationship? Serafal rambled on, lost in her fantasies. Sona's expression darkened. Anyone would be annoyed by a sister who constantly fantasized about a Yuri relationship with them. Roy chuckled. But he had to intervene before Sona had a meltdown. Ahem. He cleared his throat, interrupting Serafal's daydreams. You must be the one trying to steal Sona-chan away. I won't let you succeed. Serafal declared, spreading her arms protectively before Sona, as if she had just noticed Roy. Chapter 93. Michael delivers a holy sword. Roy was speechless. Not just Sona, I want to steal you away too, Serafal-san, he thought. But he couldn't say that out loud, so he quickly changed the subject. Ahem, well, I'm quite knowledgeable about magical girls myself. Eh? Really? Serafal stopped blocking Sona and looked at him with a skeptical expression. Of course. Look. Roy pulled Saya and mine closer. With a snap of his fingers, he used his magic to transform their clothes. Their school uniforms vanished, leaving them in their undergarments for a brief moment before they were clad in magical girl outfits. The two girls gasped in surprise. Serafal's eyes lit up as she saw their new attire. She rushed towards them and hugged Saya tightly. So beautiful. So beautiful, she exclaimed, practically drooling over Saya and mine. Roy smirked, feeling a sense of satisfaction. When it came to magical girls, no one was more knowledgeable than him. He had watched countless magical girl anime. Saya was now dressed like Sakura Kinomoto from Cardcaptor Sakura, and mine resembled Iliasville von Einsborn from Fate/Kaleid liner Prisma Ilia. Both were classic magical girl designs. It was no wonder Serafal, with her love for magical girls, was so excited. Thank you, Roy, Sona said gratefully, relieved to be free from her sister's clutches. Ha, it was nothing, Roy replied with a dismissive wave of his hand. It must be tough having a sister like that, Sona, he added sympathetically. Sona sighed. It really is. Just then, Serafal ran towards them. You're Roy, right? Transform me into a magical girl too. But it has to be different from theirs, she demanded, looking at Roy expectantly. Nei-sama. Sona began. Sona-chan, wait a moment. I have important business to attend to, Serafal interrupted with a smile, her eyes still fixed on Roy. I can do that, but... Roy hesitated. Then hurry up and transform me. Don't waste time. Serafal urged. Alright, fine. Roy had wanted to warn her that the transformation might reveal her undergarments. But since Serafal was so insistent, he didn't hesitate any longer. He placed a hand on her shoulder. The transformation began. Serafal's clothes vanished, and a new magical girl outfit appeared on her. Serafal instinctively covered herself when her clothes disappeared. But once the transformation was complete, she forgot all about her modesty. She conjured an ice mirror with her magic and admired her new appearance. Sona blushed slightly, seeing her sister exposed. Serafal suddenly gasped. This is amazing. This is what a true magical girl should look like. Roy, which anime is this outfit from? I want to watch it, she exclaimed, excited about her new look. It's not from any anime yet, Roy replied. Eh? Why not? Serafal was disappointed. But I already have the story in mind. I can create a manga for it if you'd like. Really? Really? Of course. If you want to see it, Serafal-san, I'll make it happen. I want to see it. I want to see it. Serafal cheered, her excitement bubbling over. All right. I'll make it happen, Roy chuckled, nodding in agreement. But his smile held a hint of mischief. After all, Puella Magi Madoka Magica wasn't your typical magical girl anime. He wondered if Serafal would still be so enthusiastic after watching it. Yay! Serafal clapped her hands in delight. If you make the manga, I'll share Sona-chan with you. Half of her, mind you. Only half. Sona's face darkened. Sure, no problem, Roy replied with a grin. Sona, annoyed that Roy was playing along with her sister's antics, stormed off. Serafal chased after her, reminding Roy to create the manga as soon as possible. Roy chuckled, shaking his head, then headed back to his classroom. Along the way, he encountered Rias and Aquino. Rias! Where's Surzax? Roy greeted them with a wave. Oni-sama went to meet with the angels, Rias replied. Oh, the angels have arrived? Yes. Roy, could you come with me to a certain place after school? Aquino asked. Sure, Roy agreed readily. He had a hunch about what it was. After school, Roy went to the location Aquino had specified. It was a shrine at the foot of a mountain. A long staircase led to the top. "Welcome, Roy," Aquino greeted him, dressed in a shrine maiden outfit. "Yo, Aquino." Roy waved with a smile. "Sorry for asking you to come here so suddenly," Aquino apologized. "It's no problem at all." "You don't have to be so formal with me, Aquino," Roy reassured her. He took her hand and led her towards the shrine. Aquino was momentarily surprised by his gesture, then smiled and held his hand tightly. "Aquino, you've seemed a bit down lately. Is something bothering you?" Roy asked as they walked. "If you're comfortable sharing, please tell me. I'll help you with anything." Aquino was silent for a moment, then pulled Roy towards the shrine. "I'll tell you later," she said with a smile. Roy didn't press further. They soon arrived at the shrine. "Aquino, did you bring me here to meet him?" Roy asked, noticing a familiar presence. Just then, a brilliant golden light emanated from the shrine building. A 12-winged seraph appeared within the light. "Greetings, Roy." "I am Michael," a gentle voice announced. "Greetings, Michael," Roy replied with a smile. He had to admit, Michael's entrance was quite impressive. They entered the shrine and sat facing each other. Aquino prepared tea for them. "So, Michael, what brings you here?" Roy asked. Michael was a handsome man with white hair, clad in silver armor. Although it was an odd comparison, he had a somewhat feminine beauty. If he dressed as a woman, he would undoubtedly be stunning. "Well." Michael summoned a sword with a flash of light. "This is the Dragon Slayer sword, Ascalon. It's a sword capable of slaying dragons." "Okay, and?" "I'd like to give it to you," Michael declared. "Why?" Roy was confused. In the original story, Michael had given the Dragon Slayer sword to Issei to encourage him to join the peace treaty between the three factions. After all, some members of the old Satan faction and other forces opposed the peace treaty. The skirmishes between the three factions have never truly ceased. If this continues, then one day, we might all perish. Or perhaps another faction will take advantage of our weakened state and conquer us. Michael's expression was grim. Roy understood his concerns. After all, the various mythologies and factions had never coexisted peacefully. If the three factions weakened each other through constant conflict, other forces, like those from Norse mythology, might seize the opportunity to invade. Angels, devils, and fallen angels could be wiped out. Therefore, I believe this is an excellent opportunity to unite the three factions and end this pointless conflict. "I see," Roy nodded, understanding Michael's intentions. Michael was trying to win him over, to have him join the peacekeepers. The new leaders of the three factions supported peace. But the older generation, those who had experienced the Great War, still harbored hatred and resentment. Many of them opposed peace. The descendants of the 72 Pillars, only briefly glimpsed in the anime, held immense power and influence. That's why Michael wanted to gain the support of Roy, a powerful member of the new generation. Roy didn't refuse. "In that case, I'll gratefully accept it," he said, taking the Dragon Slayer sword, Ascalon. His actions signified his willingness to join their cause. Roy was happy to join them. He was enjoying his peaceful life. If another war broke out, he would undoubtedly be dragged into it. Only a fool would refuse. Moreover, he had been looking for a good sword, and now he had been gifted a holy sword. Could a devil wield a holy sword? Of course. In the original story, Issei had often lent the Dragon Slayer sword to Zenobia. And Zenobia herself wielded a holy sword, Durandal. Unfortunately, the holy swords they had obtained from the fallen priests, along with Zenobia and Irina's swords, had been returned to the church after their battle against Kokobile. Although Zenobia and Irina had stayed, they still had to complete their mission. However, Zenobia's Durandal, being her personal holy sword, hadn't been returned. Roy had no reason to refuse such a beneficial offer. Michael smiled in satisfaction. "With that, my task is complete. I'll take my leave now." See you at the Three Factions Peace Conference then, Roy said with a wave. Michael then vanished in a flash of light. Roy examined the Dragon Slayer sword, nodding in satisfaction, then stored it away. He turned to Aquino with a smile. Aquino, now it's your turn to tell me what's been bothering you. Aquino's expression turned somber as she lowered her head. After a moment of silence, she began to speak. I'm actually the child of a fallen angel cadre, Barakiel, and a human. My mother was the daughter of a shrine priestess. One day, she met Barakiel, who was injured. She treated his wounds, and they fell in love and had me. Aquino paused. Then stood up. She untied her shrine maiden outfit, revealing her back. A devil wing and a fallen angel wing sprouted. I have both devil and fallen angel wings. But I hate my fallen angel wing. It's ugly, isn't it? She asked with a self-deprecating laugh. Well, it is quite asymmetrical. Someone with OCD wouldn't be able to handle it, Roy agreed with a chuckle. Aquino was taken aback by his blunt response, then looked downcast. Seeing her reaction, Roy decided to stop teasing her. Ahem, Aquino, can you manifest both pairs of wings at the same time? He asked curiously. Yes, I can do that, Aquino replied, summoning her other pair of wings. Now, she had one pair of devil wings and one pair of fallen angel wings. That's much more symmetrical, Roy commented, nodding in approval. They look beautiful, Aquino, he said with a smile, giving her a thumbs up. Aquino looked at him, then smiled back. Thank you. But you still haven't told me why you hate your fallen angel wing. Did Barakiel abandon you? Roy asked. No, he didn't abandon us, Aquino replied. After I was born, my father, mother, and I lived happily together. Until one day, a group of people came to our house and demanded that my mother hand me over. Of course, she refused. And to protect me, she was killed. I wished so much for my father to appear and save us. But he never came. So I hate that my fallen angel father caused my mother's death and couldn't protect her. Tears welled up in Aquino's eyes as she threw her arms around Roy. Roy held her close, offering comfort. He couldn't even protect his own woman, he sighed. Chapter 94, The Three Factions Peace Conference begins, Roy's preparations. Aquino's mother had been deeply in love with Barakiel, and Aquino herself had adored her father. However, when they needed him most, he hadn't been there. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. That was why Aquino had come to resent Barakiel. Don't worry, Aquino. I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you, Roy reassured her, gently patting her back. Aquino was touched by his words. She hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear, Roy, you can do to me what you did to Rias. Roy froze. He quickly surveyed the surroundings, confirming that they were alone in the shrine. This meant Rias had agreed to this. Since Aquino had made her intentions clear, Roy didn't hesitate. He didn't know that Rias had been the one to suggest it. After all, Roy had many servants, and the competition was fierce. Rias had decided to team up with Aquino. Back at the castle, the other girls didn't seem to notice anything different. Only Rias and Aquino exchanged knowing glances. Roy, back in his room, started working on the manga. Using his magic to recreate the images in his mind was a simple task. 3 days passed quickly. In the evening, Roy and the girls arrived at the conference room in the new school building of Kuo Academy. The leaders of the three factions were already present, Michael, Surzex, Serafal, and Azazel. An empty seat was clearly reserved for Roy. He sat down without hesitation. Sorry I'm late, he apologized with a smile. It's all right, Michael replied. He was presiding over the meeting. By the way, Roy, where are your servants? Surzex asked curiously. It seemed to be an unspoken agreement that each leader would bring their elite members. A young priest stood behind Michael, his aura suggesting considerable strength. Surzex had Rias with him. Serafal was accompanied by Sona and her peerage. Serafal was dressed in Madoka Kanami's godform attire from Puella Magi Madoka Magica, looking both adorable and imposing. And Azazel had Valley, the White Dragon Emperor, by his side. They were surprised to see Roy alone. After all, they knew Roy's peerage was quite powerful. In fact, it was precisely because of his strong peerage that he was considered equal to the leaders of the three factions. They have other matters to attend to, Roy explained casually. Surzex and the others didn't press further. The three factions' peace conference officially began. Outside the building, angels, devils, and fallen angels patrolled the sky, ensuring the meeting's security. Rias and Sona began their reports, detailing the various conflicts between the three factions in recent years, including Kokobeel's attack on Koho Town. A screen above them displayed images of the conflicts. That concludes my report, Rias declared as the screen disappeared. I confirm that Rias Gremory's report is accurate, Sona added. Thank you for your hard work, Surzex said, dismissing them. He turned to Azazel. After hearing Rias's report, I believe we all understand the dangers of conflict. So, I'd like to hear your opinion, Governor General Azazel. I have no opinion. Those were Kokobeel's own actions, Azazel replied with a shrug, denying any involvement. Are you saying you had nothing to do with it? Michael asked, his tone skeptical. I was aware of Kokobeel's unusual activities, so I investigated him. After learning his intentions, I asked the White Dragon Emperor to deal with him. But it turned out Kokobeel had already been defeated, and the White Dragon Emperor was also defeated. Now, Kokobeel is imprisoned in the deepest depths of hell, serving an eternal sentence. He won't be causing any more trouble, Azazel explained with a sigh. Valley, hearing Azazel mention his defeat, turned away with a frown. The question is, what was Kokobeel's motive? Michael pressed on, clearly not satisfied with Azazel's explanation. Perhaps because the fallen angels were once angels, Michael didn't trust Azazel. Yawn. Roy was bored by their conversation. Surzex, noticing his reaction, asked with a smile, Roy, do you have something to say? The other three leaders turned to him. Roy hadn't expected to be called upon. Well, I think everyone here is honest in their desire for peace between the three factions. There will always be those who oppose peace, no matter which faction they belong to. And judging by Azazel's demeanor, he doesn't seem interested in war. So, why don't we just sign a peace treaty and get this over with? Roy said, bored. This young man understands me well. I'm indeed not interested in war. Signing a peace treaty is precisely why I'm here, Azazel chuckled. Continuing this conflict will only harm the three factions. I believe we all agree on that. Surzex, Michael, and Serafal exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. There's one last issue, those who exist outside the three factions yet possess the power to influence the world, Surzex said, turning to Valley. I'd like to hear your opinion, White Dragon Emperor. As long as I can fight strong opponents, that's enough for me, Valley replied, glancing at Roy. There are plenty of strong individuals in this world, even without a war, Azazel added. Indeed, Valley agreed, closing his eyes with a smug smile. Then, since everyone agrees on peaceful coexistence, let's sign the peace treaty, Michael declared. No one objected. Michael began drafting the treaty. Just then, a wave of time-stopping power washed over them. Sona, Tsubaki, Rias, Akino, Kaneko, and Kayamade were frozen in place. Only Roy and the four leaders, along with Valley and the young priest behind Michael, remained unaffected. Time stop? Serafal exclaimed in surprise. Indeed. We who possess superior power are unaffected, as is the White Dragon Emperor with his sacred gear. This must be the work of the forbidden Baylor View, Azazel deduced. Roy also suspected Gasper, the wielder of the forbidden Baylor View, was responsible. Although Gasper wasn't part of Rias's peerage in this timeline, he was still present. It seemed Gasper had fallen into enemy hands. The forbidden Baylor View was a powerful sacred gear, but Gasper was too weak to utilize its full potential. And his balance breaker must have been forcibly activated. That's why it had no effect on those with ultimate class power or those with sacred gears. Time-stopping sacred gears are quite rare, Surzex commented grimly. They approached the window and looked outside. The sky was a dark crimson, and a massive magic circle hovered above the school. Figures clad in black robes emerged from the circle, their foreheads glowing with golden light. However, the elite soldiers of the three factions guarding the school prevented them from entering. "They're magicians!" Seraphal exclaimed. "And they have teleportation magic," Roy added. Whenever a magician was hit by the soldiers' attacks, they were teleported away, only to reappear from the magic circle. This allowed them to attack relentlessly without fear of death. "Our teleportation magic is restricted. We've been outsmarted," Surzex said with a frown. "They knew the exact time and location of our meeting." "There must be a traitor among us," Michael declared, glancing at Azazel. Azazel shrugged, not denying the suspicion. "There's no need for speculation. The traitor will reveal themselves eventually. Let's focus on resolving this situation first," Roy interjected calmly. "Do you have a solution, Roy?" Surzex asked curiously. "I detected the presence of foreign magicians in Kuo Town 3 days ago," Roy explained with a smile. "So I had my servants stationed throughout the town. Now that these magicians have attacked the peace conference, I'm sure my servants are already taking action." Roy had anticipated this attack and made preparations. The enemy had used Gasper's forbidden Baylor View to create a barrier around the school building. They just had to deal with Gasper. And Gasper's time-stop range was limited to the school grounds. Isteth, Siko, and the others wouldn't be affected. Outside Kuo Academy, Isteth and the others sprang into action as soon as they noticed the magic circle surrounding the school. Following Roy's instructions, they began searching for Gasper. He couldn't be too far from the academy to activate his ability. Aoi Kanzaki's Jumpluff detected a large concentration of magic power in a specific area. Isteth and the others rushed towards that location. They found a group of black-robed magicians surrounding a smaller figure. The small figure, also clad in black robes, had crimson eyes that glared at them with malice. "Humph. So you're the ones behind this?" Saya sneered, taking out her pokeball. "Eliminate," Akane declared, charging towards the magicians without hesitation. "Take them down." Isteth followed, her eyes filled with icy determination. Back in the conference room, Surzex and the others were surprised by Roy's foresight. Just then, a teleportation magic circle appeared in the room. Due to the enemy's barrier, they couldn't use teleportation magic. This meant the newcomer was an enemy. A dark-skinned woman with glasses and a voluptuous figure materialized within the circle. "Greetings, Satan, Surzex and Seraphal," she said with a sly smile. The inheritor of the previous Leviathan's bloodline, Kateria Leviathan, Surzex introduced her. "Why are you here, Kateria-chan?" Seraphal asked in surprise. "I will bring destruction and chaos to this world," Kateria declared, raising her staff and gathering magic power. Just as she was about to unleash an attack, a powerful kick sent her flying out of the conference room, interrupting her spell. "Coming here to cause trouble?" "Big mistake," Roy snarled, then turned to the leaders. "I'll take care of this." With that, he flew out of the room, chasing after Kateria. "Thank you for your assistance," Surzex said with a smile. They approached the window to watch the battle. Outside the conference room, Kateria unleashed a barrage of magic attacks. Roy simply raised his hand. Secret art, ice mirror reflection. An ice mirror materialized before him, reflecting Kateria's attacks back at her. Kateria dodged frantically, surprised that her magic was being reflected. "Graphia's brother, scion to the Lucifuge clan, you're stronger than I expected. But you'll all die here today," she declared with a cruel smile. Roy chuckled. "How amusing. You think you can defeat all of us, with just yourself? Keep dreaming." Kateria was enraged. She swung her staff, and several more magic staves appeared in the air, their tips glowing with dark red energy as they lashed out at Roy. Chapter 95, Roy vs. Kateria Leviathan and Valley Lucifer. Roy casually dodged Kateria's attacks, then reached out with his right hand. Secret art, ice archery. An ice bomb materialized in his hand, and he drew back the string, knocking an icy arrow. The arrow shot forward, piercing through Kateria's magic circle in the blink of an eye. It then split into countless arrows, raining down on Kateria. Kateria's expression changed as she hastily erected a defensive magic circle. Bang! 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 The barrage of ice arrows struck her defenses, but they didn't cause much damage. Damn it! Kateria roared, summoning even more magic circles. Countless magic tendrils lashed out at Roy. Secret art, Ice Mountain. Roy extended his hand towards the tendrils. An ice mountain materialized, instantly freezing the tendrils solid. He then turned his attention to Kateria. Secret art, 9 ice dragons. 9 ice dragons emerged, coiling around Kateria. Caught off guard by this unfamiliar attack, Kateria was instantly frozen. But Roy didn't relax. He knew Kateria still had the power she had received from Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon. As expected, black magic surged from within the ice, shattering the 9 dragons. Ha 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 ha! Kateria laughed triumphantly. Her body was now enveloped in snake-like tendrils of magic, her power significantly amplified. However, Ophis's power wasn't easily controlled. She couldn't fully utilize it. Prepare yourself, Roy Lucifuge. Kateria sneered, pointing her staff at him. She then fired another massive magic blast. You haven't learned your lesson, have you? Roy taunted. He conjured another ice mirror. Kateria's attack struck the mirror and was reflected back at her. What? How is that possible? Kateria dodged frantically, shocked. She had thought her increased power would allow her to overwhelm Roy, but reality proved her wrong. Her magic blast was once again reflected. Kateria quickly changed tactics. She summoned more magic circles, and thicker, more powerful tendrils lashed out at Roy. It seemed she had learned her lesson and wouldn't use magic blasts anymore. These magic tendrils were far stronger than before, and Roy didn't dare let them touch him. Secret art. Ice Thousand Armed Cannon. Roy had no choice but to resort to this technique. The cannon's countless fists struck the tendrils. Boom! 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 The magic tendrils and the cannon clashed, each regenerating instantly whenever they were destroyed. It became a battle of attrition. But Kateria, with Ophis's power supporting her, wasn't afraid of a drawn-out fight. Roy smirked. It seems I have to use that technique. Mahapadma. The entire area around the new school building was frozen in time and space. Even Surzex and the other Mauplas, who hadn't been affected by Gasper's time stop, were frozen solid. Roy chuckled. He didn't waste any time. He conjured his Ice Rose sword and appeared before Kateria, decapitating her with a single strike. Then, time resumed. Surzex and the others sensed that something had happened. They saw that Roy had already killed Kateria. Were we frozen in time? Michael asked, his voice filled with disbelief. It didn't feel like time manipulation, Azazel commented, unable to recall any sacred gear with such an ability. Roikuan must have done it, Serafal said, looking at Roy in surprise. Surzex remained silent, but he was shocked. He was a super devil, surpassing even Mauplas. Yet, he had been frozen in time without even realizing it. His brother-in-law's power was unfathomable. While the leaders were reeling from their shock, Vala's eyes lit up. He had been waiting for this opportunity, the moment Roy used his time-stop ability. Without that technique, Valley was confident he could defeat Roy. And such a powerful ability must have limitations. He wasn't worried about Roy using it again so soon. Vala burst through the window and flew into the sky, confronting Roy. Valley? Azazel frowned, watching Vala's actions. It seems the traitor among us is him, Michael said, his eyes narrowed. Sorry, Azazel, but this seems more interesting, Vala replied, glancing at them. Azazel sighed. Vali, there's something I need to ask you, Azazel said. Vali looked at him questioningly. Shemhazai, my vice-governor, discovered a group gathering dangerous individuals from the 3 factions. I heard it's called the Cows Brigade, led by Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon, Azazel revealed. Even Surzex and the others were surprised. Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon? One of the strongest dragons, feared even by God? It's true that I'm working with Ophis, Vali admitted. But I'm not interested in ruling the world. I just want to fight strong opponents. He looked at Roy with a sharp glint in his eyes. I thought you might have joined forces with Kateria. After all, both of you had your positions stolen. You must have a lot in common, Azazel commented. Seeing that Vali wasn't allied with Kateria, Azazel was relieved. He had raised Vala since childhood and considered him like a son. He didn't want Vala to stray down the wrong path. His words surprised Seraphal and the others. Vali ignored Azazel. White Dragon Emperor. Balance Breaker, he roared, activating his Balance Breaker. Vali, feeling confident again, are we? Roy chuckled, his arms crossed. This time, I will defeat you, Vala declared, charging towards Roy without further ado. Vali, do you really think I'm helpless now that I've used that technique? Roy asked with a playful grin. Let me show you something interesting. He reached out with his hand, summoning a magic circle. He then pulled a sword from the magic circle. It was Ascalon, the Dragon Slayer, sword. Vala's eyes widened in surprise. It's a Dragon Slayer sword. You'll be injured if you're struck by it, Albion warned him. Then I just have to avoid getting hit, right? Vala replied confidently. He charged towards Roy. Roy met his attack with his sword. Bang! 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 Clang! 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 They clashed, exchanging countless blows. With the Dragon Slayer sword in hand, Roy felt no restrictions. His powerful swordsmanship overwhelmed Vali, who couldn't risk a direct clash with the Holy Sword. The situation was completely reversed from their previous encounter. Vali was now the one on the defensive, desperately dodging Roy's attacks. Unable to endure this any longer, Vali activated his Juggernaut Drive once again. I, who shall awaken? I am the heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. I envy the infinite, and I pursue the dream. I shall become the white dragon of supremacy. And I shall sink you into the depths of the abyss. Juggernaut Drive. With his Juggernaut Drive active, Vala's speed increased dramatically. He appeared before Roy in an instant. Bang! 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 The tide seemed to have turned. Vala moved with incredible speed, relentlessly attacking Roy. Roy could only defend himself, unable to counterattack. But a prolonged defense was bound to fail. If Vala managed to land a single hit, the balance of power would shift completely. Roy understood this, so he closed his eyes, calming his mind. His actions confused Surzex and the others. Is Roy giving up? Azazel wondered with a chuckle. He would be happy if Vali won, after all. Is he no match for the White Dragon Emperor without his time-stop ability? Michael mused. I believe the White Dragon Emperor has already lost, Surzex declared confidently. When Roy opened his eyes, his expression was calm and serene, as if he could see through everything. Vala's movements, though still incredibly fast, seemed to slow down in his eyes. Roy could see through every attack. He had activated the transparent world. This was a state achieved by Yorichi Tsujikuni in the Demon Slayer world. It was the transparent world reached only after pushing oneself to the absolute limit and enduring immense pain. And now, Roy had mastered it. He effortlessly dodged Vala's next attack and casually struck him with the Dragon Slayer sword. No way! Vali gasped, feeling the wound on his chest. Damn it! He didn't dwell on how he had been hit. His juggernaut drive wouldn't last much longer. He charged at Roy again. But Roy's sword seemed to anticipate his every move. As Valley threw another punch, the Dragon Slayer's sword effortlessly sliced through his armor, creating another wound. Valley, your juggernaut drive is reaching its limit. If you continue, you'll damage your life force, Albion warned. But Valley ignored him and attacked again. Thwack! The same result. Another wound appeared on Valley's body. This time, Roy added a kick for good measure. Valley was sent flying, crashing to the ground. Roy landed beside him. Well, Valley, do you yield? He asked with a smirk. Valley was in a worse state than before, his chest covered in deep wounds. His juggernaut drive had deactivated. Why? He asked, his expression blank. There's no need for why. I am simply stronger than you, Roy replied with a shrug. And by the way, I can use that technique more than once. Valley's eyes widened in shock. He had assumed Roy couldn't use his time-stop ability consecutively, so he had tried to take advantage of that. But Roy had just told him he could use it repeatedly. This was a devastating blow to his confidence. Just then, the sky shattered like a mirror. A figure descended. Biko, what are you doing here? Valley asked, looking at the newcomer. I came to retrieve you for the battle against the Norse gods in the north. It seems I arrived just in time, Biko replied, surprised to see Valley's injuries. Is it time already? Valley asked flatly. Who did you fight? Biko couldn't help but ask, curious. Isn't he right there? Valley glanced at Roy. Biko followed his gaze. Oh. He doesn't look that strong, Biko commented skeptically. Let's go. We have to leave now. All right. Biko helped Valley to his feet and prepared to leave. Roy didn't stop them. I'll defeat you next time, Valley declared, looking at Roy with determination. I'll be waiting, Roy replied with a smile. Biko and Valley then teleported away. Roy looked up and saw that the barrier had vanished. It seemed as Death and the others had succeeded. He returned to the conference room. That was Biko, wasn't it? I didn't expect him to join the Cows Brigade, Azazel commented. Yes, Roy confirmed. Now that there are no more interruptions, we can sign the peace treaty. Surzex and the others agreed. The three factions successfully signed the peace treaty. Just then, the door opened. Isteth and the other girls entered. Roy, we've taken care of all the magicians outside, Isteth reported. Good work, Roy said with a nod. Are these Roy servants? They're quite impressive, Azazel commented, observing the girls. Surzex also nodded in approval. Roy, what exactly happened earlier? Rias asked, her curiosity overflowing. She had been too focused on the peace treaty to ask when they were released from the time stop. We'll talk about it later. Just know that the three factions have successfully signed a peace treaty, Roy replied with a smile. Ah, that's right. Rias decided not to press further. The three factions had reached a peace agreement, but maintaining that peace would require the continued efforts of those present. Chapter 96, Seraphal Acts Cute. With the three factions' peace conference concluded, Roy returned to his peaceful daily life. One day, at the Occult Research Club. Starting today, I'm the new advisor of the Occult Research Club. Seraphal declared, standing up and striking a pose with her hands on her hips. Roy, Rias, Sona, and the other girls were all present. Sona sighed, shaking her head at her sister's antics. What's going on? Rias asked, looking at Seraphal in confusion. I wanted to see more of Sona-chan, so I asked to be your advisor, Seraphal explained. And to discuss magical girls with Roy. By the way, Roy, is that Madoka Magica manga you mentioned finished? She asked, bouncing over to Roy, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Yes, it is. But as a Mao, shouldn't you be busy with other matters? How do you have time to be an advisor? Roy asked, puzzled. He remembered that Azazel was supposed to be the advisor. Why had Seraphol taken his place? Of course, if it had been Azazel, he would have objected. After all, Kuo Academy was an all-girls school. I am quite busy, so I won't be here often, Seraphol admitted, then held out her hand expectantly. Roy sighed and placed the completed manga in her hand. Seraphol squealed with delight and immediately sat down to read it, ignoring everyone else. Roy, are you sure it's okay to let her read that? Mine whispered, nudging him with her elbow and glancing at Seraphol. She had already read the manga. It was a good story, but unlike typical magical girl stories, Madoka Magica was quite dark and disturbing. Roy had called it a healing anime. After watching it, she had been furious. Healing? She had thought. More like depressing. Would Seraphol, who feared nothing, be affected by this dark tale? Would she snap and try to destroy the world? It's fine. I'm curious to see her reaction, Roy chuckled, anticipating the chaos that might ensue. I just hope Seraphol-sama doesn't cause too much trouble, Ria said with a worried sigh. They all watched as Seraphol read the manga. At first, she was all smiles. But then, her expression clouded over. Her smile vanished, and her face became serious. As she continued reading, tears welled up in her eyes. Soon, she was sobbing uncontrollably. Sona had never seen her sister cry like this before and was quite concerned. Seraphol finally calmed down after finishing the manga, though she remained in a daze. Roy approached her and patted her shoulder. Seraphol-san, are you all right? It was amazing. Seraphol suddenly shouted, startling Roy. Roy-kun, your manga is incredible. It's unlike any magical girl story I've ever seen, she exclaimed, grabbing his hand excitedly. I'm glad you liked it, Roy replied, surprised by her reaction. He had expected her to be upset or even enraged, not overjoyed. Hey, let's adapt it into an anime. And then make a live-action movie. I'll play Madoka, and Sona-chan can play Hamura. Seraphol suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Well. Roy glanced at Sona. Sona was facepalming, clearly exasperated by her sister's antics. That's not a bad idea, Roy said, playing along. Yay! Thank you, Roy-kun. Seraphol cheered, hugging him tightly. Sona and Ria stared at them in disbelief. They couldn't believe that Mouse Seraphol was clinging to Roy and acting cute. No one would believe this if they told them. Time flew by, and a month passed in the blink of an eye. Summer vacation had arrived at Kuo Academy. As per tradition, Roy and Rias had to return to the underworld with their peerages. They gathered to discuss their plans. Roy, what are we doing this summer vacation? Rias asked with a smile. Roy pondered for a moment. How about we visit your family first, then we'll go to my sister's place together. And finally, we'll have a training camp. What do you think? Rias nodded in agreement. That sounds like a good plan. The girls were excited. Going to the underworld while we're still alive is a bit nerve-wracking, but I'll face it with the resolve of someone facing death. Asia joked. Are we going to hell? She'll asked with a confused tilt of her head. Silly Sheil, the underworld is just where devils live. It's not hell, Chelsea explained patiently. We're going to meet Bucho's sister? I'm so nervous, Aika, Murayama, and Kate said in unison. It was their first time visiting the underworld. Will we see Grafia-sama when we go to the underworld? Alice asked, raising her hand. Of course. She's been wanting us to visit, Roy replied with a smile, patting Alice's head. Special training, huh? Kaneko mumbled, petting her cat. She stood up and approached Roy. Roy-senpai, please make me stronger. I don't want to be a burden, she said with a determined look. Roy was momentarily surprised, then smiled. Kaneko, you're not a burden at all. Don't worry, I'll make you stronger during the training camp. That's right, Kaneko. You're not a burden. You're my precious servant, Rias added, hugging Kaneko. Kaneko had been feeling insecure because she hadn't been able to contribute much in recent battles. But her resolve to become stronger was unwavering. And it wasn't just Kaneko. Roy had other servants in a similar situation. For example, Yuriko and Alice were still low class. But that was normal. It had been less than half a year since they became devils. Half a year was nothing to a devil. Countless devils remained low-class for centuries. Shizuka was also a low-class devil. But she didn't seem to mind, seemingly content with her role as a maid. It didn't matter anyway, as Roy didn't intend for her to fight. Saya was also a low-class devil, but she had her Gyarados, so she wasn't in a hurry to increase her strength. The other girls were all middle-class devils or higher, so there was no need to worry about them for now. But he had to plan this training camp carefully. The next day, they packed their belongings and boarded the train to the underworld. Sona joined them on the luxurious train. Sona, after visiting your family, would you like to join us for the training camp? Roy asked. You're going to a training camp? Unfortunately, I've already been assigned a trial by my sister. I won't be able to join you, Sona replied with a sigh. That's a shame. But it's all right. We can train together another time, Roy said with a smile. Yes. Sona nodded. We're planning to visit Rias's family first, then mine. Of course, I'll visit your family as well. Sona was delighted to hear that Roy would visit her family. I'll visit your home after my trial as well. It's settled then. Just then, an announcement came over the train's intercom. Attention passengers, we will be arriving at the Citri territory shortly. See you later, Sona. Goodbye, Sona. See you. They bid farewell to Sona, who disembarked with her peerage. The train continued its journey. The girls chatted amongst themselves. With some time to kill before reaching the Gremory territory, Roy took out his game console. Asia sat beside him, cheering him on. Kaneko sat opposite him, challenging him to a match. Roy, where are we going for the training camp? Kurome asked, munching on candy. It's a world filled with spirits, Roy replied, his attention focused on his game with Kaneko. The girls were intrigued. Are they like Sikone-san's Scyther? Kurome asked curiously. If that's the case, I have to catch a strong one, Mine declared, puffing out her chest. Saya had been showing off her Gyarados, which was incredibly powerful. Even Mine found it troublesome to deal with. Although she pretended to be unimpressed, Mine was secretly envious. No, they're different from familiars, although they're also called spirits. And they can greatly enhance one's power, Roy explained, finally defeating Kaneko. Kaneko's eyes lit up. Roy-senpai, one more round. She challenged, eager for a rematch. Alright, one more round. Roy accepted her challenge. What kind of training is it? I'm so excited, Kayame said, looking out the window with anticipation. Soon, another announcement came over the intercom. Attention passengers, we will be arriving at the Gremory territory shortly. Finally, Ria said, stretching. Everyone, gather your things. We're getting off. Wow! It's so big! Asia exclaimed, looking out the window at the vast Gremory territory. The land was neatly divided into different sections, resembling a patchwork of fields. It was a beautiful sight. This is the Gremory territory? It's so beautiful. Irina gushed. It is quite impressive. The Lucifuge territory pales in comparison, Roy commented. He was telling the truth. If the Gremory territory was the size of a city, then the Lucifuge territory was a district. Of course, he wasn't including the uninhabited areas. The underworld was vast, and the devil population was relatively small. Rias chuckled, hearing Roy's comment. I believe with Roy around, our clan will become even more prosperous. Yes, the girls agreed confidently. Hee, of course. But to truly prosper, we'll need your help, Roy said with a wink, looking at the girls suggestively. Their help? Does he mean having children? Rias wondered, blushing. The other girls also blushed, understanding his implication. Roy grinned, then led them off the train. They soon arrived at the Gremory family estate, a massive and luxurious castle. Is this Bucho's home? It's amazing. Zenobia and Irina were awestruck. The castle doors opened, and several maids emerged. Welcome back, Ria-sama, Roy-sama, and everyone, the head maid greeted them with a bow. Let's go inside, Ria said to Roy with a smile. Okay. They entered the castle. Rias led them towards the dining hall. Servants and maids lined the long corridor, welcoming them. Rias-ne-sama, welcome back. A young boy with red hair ran towards Rias and hugged her. I'm back, Milikas. You've grown so much. Rias chuckled, patting the boy's head. Roy looked at the child curiously. Could this be Surzex's son, he wondered. But Graphia was his sister now. Where did this child come from? Rias, who's this? He's my nephew, Rias explained. Come, say hello to everyone. Okay. Milikas readily agreed and bowed politely. I'm Milikas Gremory. Pleased to meet you all. He's so cute. Hello, Milikas. What an adorable little guy. They followed Rias and met her mother, Venelana Gremory. Venelana was like a mature version of Rias with brown hair. She was incredibly beautiful. Chapter 97, Training Camp in the World of Blade Dance. Greetings, Mother, Roy and Rias said in unison, bowing respectfully. Since they were engaged, it was appropriate for Roy to address Venelana as Mother. Welcome back, Rias, Roy, Venelana greeted them with a warm smile. You must be tired from your journey. Let's have dinner. Rias, please lead the way. The girls were charmed by Venelana's gentle and elegant demeanor. They followed Rias to the dining hall. Rias's parents were already seated at the table, but Surzex was absent, likely attending to important matters. During dinner, Rias's parents asked Roy some questions, which he answered honestly. To be honest, Roy wasn't fond of this formal setting. They usually had their meals in a more casual atmosphere. Akame, for instance, loved to devour meat with gusto. But now, she was forced to use a knife and fork, taking small bites of her steak. Roy felt a pang of sympathy for her. He decided to make it up to her later with a special meal. Dinner soon ended. The maids led them to their respective rooms. As soon as the maids left, Roy was about to go find Akame and offer her some extra food. But before he could leave, he heard a knock on his door. He opened the door, and as expected, it was Akame and Kurome. Come in. You two must be hungry. Here. Roy said, taking out a roasted lamb leg and some desserts from his storage magic. Akame and Kurome's eyes lit up, and they immediately started devouring the food. They were indeed starving. Oniai-chan, it's our turn to sleep with you tonight, Kurome said with a giggle, rolling around on the bed after finishing her meal. Akame had already slipped under the covers. Roy sighed. Back in the world of Akame Giakil, although he had made them his consorts, they were still too young, so he hadn't done anything. After all, Akame and mine were only 15, and Kurome was even younger. But Akame's figure was defying logic. She was already a C-cup. Perhaps it's because she eats so much meat, Roy mused. After a few days at the Gremory estate, Roy and the girls, along with Rias, returned to the Lucifuge territory. Look, this is our home, Roy announced on the train, pointing out the window. Wow! It's beautiful. This is our home? I'm so excited. The girls marveled at the sight of the city below. It was similar in scale to the Gremory territory, though smaller. They disembarked from the train and explored the Lucifuge territory. The devils here lived common lives, just like humans. And everyone seemed happy and content. So, what do you think? Not bad, right? Although it's not as grand as the Gremry territory, Roy said with a smile. It's quite lovely. Isteth commented, nodding in approval. Roy. Rias glared at him playfully. The Gremry territory isn't this peaceful. Devils were generally aggressive and prone to fighting, so conflicts were common. But they hadn't seen a single fight during their tour of the Lucifuge territory. Ha ha ha. Roy chuckled proudly. He was the reason for the peace and stability in the territory. They soon arrived at the Lucifuge castle. Welcome home. Graphia greeted them with a smile. Roy was surprised to see his sister personally welcoming them. Sis, I'm home. Graphia-sama, we're back. After exchanging greetings, Roy led the girls inside. That evening, after dinner, Roy and Rias decided to start their training camp the next day. After all, returning to their world would be instantaneous. They would visit Sona after the training camp. Roy had already chosen their destination. It was the world of Blade Dance of Elementalers, one of the worlds that had recently appeared in the system. In this world, there was an elemental spirit world inhabited by countless spirits. There were sword spirits, as well as spirits of fire, wind, earth, light, darkness, and other elements, including dragons. These diverse spirits formed the vibrant and magical elemental spirit world. The humans in this world could form contracts with these spirits and utilize their powers. Roy's target was these spirits. They could transform into various weapons or enhance existing ones. This would perfectly address the lack of powerful weapons for Siko, Kene, Mitsuri, and the others. Even Leon and Mine, who had Taigu, could benefit from having spirits enhance their weapons. Roy also had his eyes on two specific spirits. One was the sword spirit, Restia Ashdal, the spirit of the demon slayer sword that could kill Mao. The other was the dark elemental lord, Ran Ashdal. Many might not know her, but they would likely recognize her other form, Restia Ashdal. Restia's sword form was the Vorpal sword, the first black sword wielded by the protagonist in the original story. And Restia Ashdal was just a high-ranking dark elemental created by Ran Ashdal in her own image. These two sword spirits were Roy's primary targets. With them, he could retire the Dragon Slayer sword. The next morning, after breakfast, Roy gathered everyone in the training room. Is everyone ready? It's time for our training camp, he announced with a smile. We're ready. Bring it on. I'm so excited to see what kind of world we're going to. I'm going to become stronger this time. Seeing their enthusiasm, Roy activated the system's teleportation function. In the next moment, they vanished. World of Blade Dance of Elementalers? All worlds were bubbles born from the world root, the Chaos Sea. In this world, the first to be born were the spirits of light and darkness. The light spirits illuminated the world, while the darkness spirits cloaked it in night. Then came the spirits of fire and wind, water and earth. The sky and earth separated, hills rose, rivers flowed, and forests grew. The spirits created their own subordinate spirits, forming a separate world within this world, the elemental spirit world, a paradise of harmony and balance. The power of the spirits permeated the world, giving rise to countless life forms. Giant beasts of the sea, animals, monsters, dragons, and giants. And then came the spirit contractors, the ancestors of both humans and elves. Under the guidance of the spirits, the world was a paradise of order and harmony. But at some point, due to the reverence of the spirit contractors, the primordial spirits, who were part of the world's structure, underwent a change. They gained sentience. Thus, the 6 great elemental lords were born. The elemental lords, now possessing consciousness and personality, were driven by an instinctive desire deep within their souls. They sought to perfect their existence. All the elements in this world were merely copies from the world root, like reflections in water. Therefore, the elemental lords craved true elements. The 6 sentient elemental lords joined forces and opened a gate to the world root. They successfully stole true elements but were attacked by an army of angels. With the help of many elemental weapons, the elemental lords repelled the angels and sealed the gate. But they only managed to obtain the true darkness and a portion of the true fire. The true darkness was claimed by Reincarnated, the Dark Elemental Lord. And the true fire was stolen by the spirit contractors and its whereabouts remained unknown. The true darkness, brought into this world, began to corrupt the elemental lords. Reincarnated, having the closest affinity to darkness, was the most affected. To prevent her from going berserk and becoming a gate that would summon the angels, the other 5 elemental lords formed an alliance, led by the same king. They sought to eliminate Reincarnated, thus starting the Spirit War. This was the origin of the world of Blade Dance of Elementalers. Roy and the girls arrived at the beginning of the Spirit War. They were in the elemental spirit world. It was nighttime, and 2 moons, one large and one small, hung in the sky, along with countless stars. It was a breathtaking sight. They were in a forest, surrounded by purple lights that danced like fireflies, creating a dreamlike atmosphere. The trees had ring-like patterns on their bark that glowed faintly, illuminating the surroundings along with the moonlight. Wow! It's so beautiful! Rias exclaimed, catching a purple light in her hand, her eyes sparkling with childlike wonder. Not just Rias, but all the girls were mesmerized by the enchanting scenery. Even Roy was captivated. After a while, Roy addressed them. Let's set up camp here for the night. Yay! This place is amazing. Sleeping here will be like a dream. I want to admire the moonlight all night. Fueled by their excitement, they quickly set up their tents and prepared a barbecue. The aroma of grilled meat filled the air. They enjoyed their barbecue under the enchanting moonlight. However, the delicious smell attracted some unwanted attention. Many elemental spirits were drawn to the scent. Most were peaceful creatures. But not the demonic spirits. Demonic spirits were malevolent beings with twisted minds. They were aggressive and dangerous. If they formed a contract with an elemental spirit contractor, they would devour their contractor's body to absorb their power. A demonic spirit, resembling a dark knight, appeared before them. Era, this one doesn't seem very friendly, Akino commented, the first to react to the intruder. Siko, however, looked at the dark knight with interest. I'll handle this one, she said, stepping forward. Very well, Akino chuckled, stepping back. Be careful, Siko. This demonic spirit is dangerous, Roy warned. He explained the nature of demonic spirits to the girls. This one was a high-ranking elemental spirit, its strength comparable to a peak high class. And as a demonic spirit, its destructive power was even greater than that of other high-ranking spirits. It was a formidable opponent. However, demonic spirits lacked intelligence. That was their weakness. Siko grinned confidently, hearing Roy's explanation. She charged towards the demonic spirit. Demon Slayer Mark. Thunder Breathing, First Form, Thunderclap and Flash Eightfold. Siko went all out from the start. She was only at the early stage of high class, while this demonic spirit was at the peak of that level. The difference in strength was significant. She had to use her full power. The demonic spirit resembled a dark knight, wielding a sword and shield. Siko, transformed into a bolt of lightning, attacked relentlessly. But the demonic spirit's defenses were strong, blocking all of Siko's attacks. Fortunately, it was slow, so it couldn't land a hit on Siko either. Siko is so strong. Go, Seiko. It seems she's having trouble defeating it. That demonic spirit is powerful. Siko can't even injure it. The girls watched the battle with worry. It was a dangerous fight. Siko's attacks couldn't penetrate the demonic spirit's defenses. But if she was hit, she would be severely injured. Akame and Kuron, their hands gripping their sword hilts, were eager to join the fray. Thunder Breathing, Thunder Cutter. After a series of unsuccessful attacks, Siko unleashed her strongest technique. A flash of lightning illuminated the night sky. Clang! A deafening clash echoed as Siko's sword struck the demonic spirit's blade. Her sword shattered. Siko backflipped, creating distance, and stared at her broken sword in shock and dismay. It was the first gift Roy had given her. "Roy, let me handle this," Akame offered, seeing Siko's broken sword. Akame, with her peak high-class strength and her Taigu, Murasame, could easily defeat this demonic spirit. But Roy shook his head. He looked at Siko, a sly smile on his lips. "Don't worry, it's not over yet." Chapter 98, Targeting the Dark Elemental Lord. Roy retrieved the Dragon Slayer sword, Ascalon, from his storage magic. "Siko, catch," he called out, tossing the sword towards her. Siko caught the sword and her eyes widened in recognition. "It's the Dragon Slayer, Ascalon. Give it your all, Siko. You've got this." Roy encouraged her with a grin and a wave. "I won't let you down," Siko responded, a determined smile spreading across her face. She drew Ascalon and charged towards the demonic spirit once more. Thunder Breathing, 7th form, Hano Ikazuchi no Kami. This was a combination technique derived from other forms of thunder breathing. It involved a lightning-fast thrust, too quick for the naked eye to follow, creating a golden dragon of lightning that surged towards the target. Siko had mastered this technique under Roy's guidance. The demonic spirit raised its shield to block the attack. The golden dragon of lightning struck the shield, then pierced through it, continuing its trajectory. It struck the ground behind the demonic spirit, exploding in a burst of lightning. The demonic spirit vanished, dissolving into countless black particles. Siko had defeated it with a single strike. "Wow! Siko-ne-san is amazing." Alice and the three little girls from the Butterfly Mansion cheered, clapping their hands excitedly. The other girls also looked at Siko with admiration. Even Akame admitted to herself that she couldn't have defeated the demonic spirit so quickly. Esdeath nodded in approval, acknowledging Siko's strength. Although Esdeath got along well with everyone, earning her true approval wasn't easy. She believed in strength above all else. Siko's performance had finally earned her respect. "Roy, I've completed the task," Siko said, slightly out of breath as she approached Roy and presented him with Ascalon. She had enjoyed the intense battle. Her exhilarated expression was proof of that. Roy, however, didn't take the sword. He shook his head with a smile. "Siko, this sword is for you." "Eh?" Siko stammered, taken aback. "But then, you won't have a sword to use." Don't worry. I already have my eyes on something else." "I won't be needing this sword," Roy reassured her. "If that's the case, then I gratefully accept," Siko said, no longer refusing his gift. With the demonic spirit dealt with, they continued enjoying their meal under the moonlight. After witnessing Siko's power, no other elemental spirit approached them. The night passed peacefully. The next day, Roy led the girls in a certain direction. "Where are we going, Roy?" Rias asked curiously. "We're going to find the Dark Elemental Lord," Roy replied. He had explained the situation in this world to the girls the night before. So, they knew that the Dark Elemental Lord was about to go to war with the other 5 Elemental Lords. "Where is she?" "You'll see." Although Roy didn't know her exact location, he had ways of finding her. They moved swiftly through the forest. Soon, Roy stopped, sensing the presence of a high-ranking elemental spirit. In a pool of water beneath a waterfall, a beautiful young woman was bathing. She had long, flowing blue hair, delicate features, and a stunning figure. High-ranking elemental spirits typically had human-like forms, except when they transformed into weapons. They were rare and powerful, and they were all beautiful girls. Mine covered Roy's eyes with her hand. "No peeking," she scolded playfully. Roy chuckled. "Come on, it's just an elemental spirit." "Humph. Even if it's an elemental spirit, you can't look," Mine insisted. Surprisingly, Saya agreed with Mine. Weren't they usually arguing? "Who are you?" "This is my territory." The elemental spirit in the water noticed them. Elemental spirits had a strong sense of territoriality, especially high-ranking ones. The spirit emerged from the water. "Hey, put some clothes on." Mine shouted, still covering Roy's eyes. Eh? What are clothes? The elemental spirit asked, tilting her head in confusion. Having never interacted with humans before, she naturally didn't know about clothes. Leave my territory, or I'll force you out, she warned. Suddenly, she transformed into a massive python, over 100 meters long. The girls gasped in surprise. A beautiful girl turning into a monstrous snake in the blink of an eye was quite a shock. Wait, I have a question, Roy said, approaching the python. I don't want to answer any questions. Leave my territory, the python hissed, lashing out with its tail. Roy sighed and conjured an ice wall, effortlessly blocking the attack. Bam! The python roared and lunged at Roy, its jaws wide open. It seems I have to subdue you before we can have a proper conversation, Roy muttered. Freeze! He slammed his hand on the ground, and a layer of ice spread rapidly, encasing the python's body, leaving only its head free. Now, are you willing to answer my question? Roy asked with a smirk. The python struggled for a while, then, realizing it couldn't break free, lowered its head in defeat. I'll answer your question, it hissed. Then return to your original form, Roy said. He found the monstrous snake form rather unpleasant. He preferred the beautiful girl. Roy released the ice, and the python transformed back into the blue-haired girl. Saya and the others glared at Roy, and Rias pouted. Roy ignored them and addressed the elemental spirit. Do you know where the Dark Elemental Lord is? What? The Dark Elemental Lord? The girl trembled at the mention of that name. After listening to the girl's explanation, Roy and the others finally understood the current situation. The war between the elemental lords had already begun. Logically, the Dark Elemental Lord shouldn't be able to win against the combined might of the other 5 elemental lords. But for some reason, she had become incredibly powerful. After a fierce battle, the two sides were currently at a stalemate. However, Roy knew this was only temporary. The Dark Elemental Lord was being corrupted by the true darkness and would eventually lose control. But it was also because of the true darkness that she had become so powerful. The elemental spirit they had encountered was originally a subordinate of the Water Elemental Lord. After witnessing the Dark Elemental Lord's power in the previous battle, she had fled to the edge of the elemental spirit world to escape the war. This meant they were currently at the edge of the elemental spirit world. The Dark Elemental Lord's territory was to the south. And the territories of the other 5 elemental lords were to the north. They had to act quickly. If the Dark Elemental Lord was completely consumed by the true darkness, it would be disastrous. So, who wants this Water Elemental Spirit? Roy asked, turning to the girls. Aren't you going to let me go? The Water Elemental Spirit exclaimed in surprise. Ahem, I never said that, Roy replied, feeling a bit awkward. He felt like he was bullying a child. Although the girls sympathized with the elemental spirit, their desire to become stronger outweighed their pity. But none of them spoke up first. Many of them wanted this Water Elemental Spirit. Alright, how about this? Everyone who wants her, raise your hand. Rias, you can too. But ultimately, I'll decide who gets her, Roy declared. The girls agreed. Those who wanted the elemental spirit raised their hands. Aika, Murayama, Kates, Yuriko, Rika. Even Kaneko and Kyomabe seemed eager but were too shy to raise their hands. Roy didn't mind. There were plenty of other elemental spirits. I'll give this Water Elemental Spirit to Yuriko, he decided. After all, Yuriko was one of his first servants, but she was still a low class. It was time to boost her strength. Moreover, Yuriko practiced water magic and possessed the Taigu Black Marlin, which would synergize well with the Water Elemental Spirit. Saya, did you see that? I got the Elemental Spirit. Yuriko cheered, jumping up and down excitedly, grabbing her daughter's hand. Yes, I know. Geez. Although Saya was happy for her mother, she couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Yuriko ignored her daughter's tsundere act and approached Roy. Go ahead and use the pact magic, Roy instructed. There were various types of contract magic, such as master-servant contracts and peerage contracts. The pact magic would allow Yuriko to merge with the water elemental spirit's power. She would be able to fully utilize the spirit's power in battle. Of course, this also meant their lives would be linked. They would share each other's fate. Understood. Yuriko nodded and approached the water elemental spirit. Don't resist, or I'll turn you into snake soup, got it? Roy threatened the spirit with a smile. The timid elemental spirit nodded frantically, too scared to disobey. Yuriko then began the contract ritual. With the spirit's cooperation, the contract was formed smoothly. With the water elemental spirit's power, Yuriko's strength instantly soared to high class. It was a significant leap in power, skipping 2 ranks. Of course, Yuriko would need some training to fully utilize the spirit's power. Saya, Rika, and the others were envious. After the contract was formed, Yuriko released the water elemental spirit. She knew Roy's preferences, after all. Ahem, you can't do that when others are around, Roy whispered in her ear. Of course, I know, Yuriko replied with a wink. Saya glared at them. By the way, what's your name? Roy asked the water elemental spirit. I am called Nim, she replied timidly, hiding behind Yuriko. Now, lead us to the Dark Elemental Lord's territory. Really? We're going there? Yes, lead the way. Nim, though terrified of the Dark Elemental Lord, was even more afraid of Roy. They followed Nim. The elemental spirit world was vast. Even with their speed, it took them half a month to reach the border of the Dark Elemental Lord's territory. Roy didn't enter immediately. Further ahead, there would be many of the Dark Elemental Lord's subordinates patrolling the area. To capture the Dark Elemental Lord, he needed to assess her strength first. This task was best suited for Chelsea. Chelsea, go and scout the area, Roy instructed. No problem. Leave it to me, Chelsea replied confidently, popping a lollipop into her mouth. She used her Taigu Jia foundation to transform into a small bird and flew into the Dark Elemental Lord's territory. Will she be all right? Rias asked, worried. Don't worry. Chelsea's Taigu allows her to transform into anything. Unless she gets too close to the Dark Elemental Lord, she won't be discovered, Roy reassured her. Chelsea was an elite assassin of Night Raid. This kind of reconnaissance mission was child's play to her. She wasn't like those comedic relief characters in anime who always messed up. If she made mistakes, she would have died long ago. Rias didn't question him further. They waited patiently. A day later, a small black cat leaped into Roy's arms, nuzzling him affectionately. So, how did the investigation go? Roy asked, stroking the cat's head. The cat transformed back into Chelsea. I've gathered the necessary information, she reported. Here. Roy handed her a lollipop. The girls looked at Chelsea expectantly. Chelsea unwrapped the lollipop and popped it into her mouth. According to my investigation, the Dark Elemental Lord has one subordinate who's a high-ranking dragon spirit, the Dragon King, Bahamut. And there are 13 other high-ranking elemental spirits, as well as tens of thousands of mid-ranking and low-ranking spirits. That's the extent of her forces, at least as far as I could tell. There might be other hidden forces as well. Chelsea didn't want to make any guarantees. After all, there might be areas she couldn't access. Chapter 99, Subjugating Renash Doll. Roy nodded. His guess was right. The Dark Elemental Lord's true strength was her raw power. He suspected that since the highest-ranking elemental spirits were on par with peak high class, an elemental lord would be ultimate class. The Dark Elemental Lord herself was likely at the pinnacle of ultimate class, maybe even stronger. It made sense. How else could she have taken on 5 elemental lords at once and won? Her subordinates, thankfully, seemed easier to handle. High-ranking elemental spirits were rare and powerful. The highest ranking were even rarer. Usually, there was only one for each element. Knowing this, Roy had a plan. Once we teleport in, he told the girls, Isdeth and the others will hold off the Dark Elemental Lord's subordinates. No killing. I'll subdue the Dark Elemental Lord myself. Got it? Got it. Isdeth grinned confidently. Roy, be careful. Rias looked at him, worried. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Everyone ready? Roy asked. Ready. Roy, go get her. We'll hold them off. Good luck, Roy Onie-chan. Roy wasn't too worried about the girls. Isdeth was the ultimate class. She could handle a few high-ranking spirits and a small army. Roy activated the teleportation circle. They vanished. They reappeared in a huge temple. On the throne above sat a girl with black hair, golden eyes, and delicate features. Massive black wings spread from her back. Power radiated from her. It was the Dark Elemental Lord, Ren Ashdal. Beside her stood a beautiful girl with long blue hair and red eyes. Her skin was whiter than pearls, her limbs slender and doll-like. This was the Dragon King, Bahamut, Ren Ashdal's right hand and the highest-ranking dragon spirit. Who are you? Ren Ashdal's voice was cold. Ren Ashdal, Roy said, his expression sincere. We're here to save you. He hoped she'd trust him. But Ren Ashdal, tainted by the otherworld darkness, wasn't buying it. She stood, eyes icy. With a flick of her wrist, she attacked. Dark thousand blades. Feathers from her wings became razor-sharp blades, flying towards them. Roy sighed. She wouldn't listen. At least she wasn't fully consumed by the otherworld darkness yet. Secret art, Southern Cross Shield. Roy conjured a thick ice shield, blocking the attack. This place is too small. Go outside and hold off the other spirits, he told the girls. Okay, Roy. Be careful. Rias said, leading the others out. Siko stayed. She locked eyes with Bahamut, a fierce light in her eyes. Bahamut, seeing Siko's Dragon Slayer sword, looked intrigued. They both left the temple, seeking open ground. Outside, Isdeth faced the other spirits. She wasn't fazed. Isdeth drew her rapier, smirked, and slashed. A wave of ice spread for kilometers, freezing the spirits solid. Isdeth Nizan, that was amazing. So strong. I want that power. Incredible. That's her true strength? My, Roy's peerage is impressive. The girls were stunned. Inside, Roy's fight began. Ren Ashdal summoned a black sword. The Demon Slayer's sword that pierces truth. Roy summoned his Ice Rose sword. Their swords clashed. Clang! 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 Roy was confident in his swordsmanship. He was surprised by Ren Ashdal's skill, though. He could overpower her easily, but he held back. Ren Ashdal, he said, you realize the otherworld darkness is corrupting you, right? If you don't stop it, it'll consume you. She didn't respond, attacking fiercely. She knew her situation. That's why she created Restia Ashdal, a dark elemental in her image, with the otherworld darkness at its core. Restia could absorb the darkness. Ren Ashdal planned to use her to cleanse herself. But her mind was clouded. She wouldn't listen. Roy frowned. This wasn't working. The otherworld darkness gave her endless energy. He couldn't drag this out. Mahapadma. Ice blue light filled the temple, freezing everything. Ren Ashdal was frozen mid-swing. Secret art, Ice Thousand-Armed Cannon. Roy summoned the giant ice statue. Fists rained down on Ren Ashdal, smashing her into the ground. Even after Mahapadma ended, the cannon kept punching. The temple was ruined, a huge crater in the middle. Dust and smoke filled the air. But Ren Ashdal's aura was still strong. Damn! She burst from the crater, black wings spread wide. She was unharmed, but her aura was wild, Dark flames. Black flames erupted from her wings, burning everything. Even the stone floor caught fire. Like Amaterasu, they wouldn't go out. Roy's face was grim. He couldn't be touched by those flames. Secret art, 9 ice dragons. 9 ice dragons charged the flames, freezing the ground as they went. But the flames melted them instantly. Such powerful flames. Roy thought. The flames weakened after consuming the dragons. Roy blocked the last of them with a Southern Cross shield. Furious, Ren Ashdal raised her hands. Black lightning crackled, forming a dark energy sphere. It pulsed with destructive power. Dark demon lightning blast. Roy knew that attack. Black lightning that could burn souls. The dark element's strongest spell, a wide area attack. Even mid-ranking spirits were instantly destroyed. Restia had used it in the original story. It was terrifying. Ren Ashdal's version would wipe out even high-ranking spirits. He couldn't let her use it. It would destroy everything for kilometers. Mahapadma. Roy froze time again, then moved behind Ren Ashdal. He placed his hand on her back. Secret art, absolute zero. Ren Ashdal froze solid, the black lightning ball in her hands freezing with her. Time shall resume. Roy wiped his brow, relieved. Absolute Zero was one of Satellizer L. Bridget's strongest moves. Unlike his other ice attacks, it completely erased life. Even ultimate class devils would be turned to dust. Ren Ashdal was only frozen, not destroyed. This had been a tough fight. 2 Mahapadmas and Absolute Zero had drained almost all his magic. Roy, are you okay? Royoni-chan, are you alright? Brother! Are you hurt? The girls rushed over, worried. I'm fine, Roy said, waving his hand. Just used up a lot of magic. Is she beaten? Rias looked at the frozen Ren Ashdal. Frozen, for now, Roy said. What now? I need to recover some magic. Then we'll try a devil piece. He wasn't sure it would work. Even frozen, Ren Ashdal was still conscious. If she resisted, it would fail. But he had to try. Roy rested, regaining some magic. He went to Ren Ashdal. Ren Ashdal, I know you can hear me. The otherworld darkness is eating away at you. You'll be destroyed. I'm the only one who can save you. He held out a queen piece. Accept my power. You can break through your limits. You'll control the otherworld darkness, not fear it. The otherworld darkness was just a more powerful kind of dark energy. Strong enough, and you could control it. Too weak, and it consumed you. Ren Ashdal hadn't been instantly corrupted. She was close to the threshold. If she broke through to Mao, she'd control it. Roy started the ritual. An ice-blue magic circle appeared under her feet. By my name, Roy Lucifuge, I command thee, Ren Ashdal, to become my servant devil, reborn as my queen. He spoke the words of the contract. The queen piece drifted towards Ren Ashdal and merged with her. Roy watched, tense. It was up to her now. After a moment, she didn't resist. Devil wings sprouted beneath her black ones. Yes. Roy jumped for joy. A wave of power exploded from her, pulverizing the temple debris. Roy's face changed. He shielded the girls with a spatial barrier. The power was monstrous. Ren Ashdal had broken through to Mao. And a powerful one at that. Roy felt the surge of power course through him, elevating him from a low-tier Mao to an intermediate Mao. 2 Mao auras erupted, cracking the earth and shaking the land for kilometers. Then, it faded. Ren Ashdal rushed into Roy's arms, her eyes shining. Ren Ashdal? Roy asked, hesitant. Yes. You saved me, she said. Elemental spirits were young, their minds pure. Even Ren Ashdal, the Dark Elemental Lord, was like a child. Corrupted, yes, but she remembered who saved her. I did. I'm Roy, he said. Roy. Her voice was bright. Roy felt like his heart was melting. She was adorable. He released the barrier. Everyone, this is Renash Doll, the Dark Elemental Lord. She's my queen now. He grinned, introducing her. Chapter 100, Discovering Terminus Estate. The girls were happy for Roy. They crowded around Ren, introducing themselves. Run, still clinging to Roy, didn't speak, but she looked at them with a friendly expression. Ren, Roy said, why don't you call your subordinates back? Okay. Ron nodded softly. She went to gather her spirits and returned quickly, snuggling back into Roy's arms. She seemed reluctant to let go. Roy chuckled and stroked her head. It seemed being rescued had made her rather attached to him. Kurome, who was also quite attached to her Onia-chan, glared at Ren, hoping she'd leave Roy alone. Ron, however, ignored her. Roy laughed and patted Kurome's head. Some things never change, he thought. Soon, Ren's subordinates arrived. Ren-sama, what's going on? The Dragon King, Bahamut, looked at Ren, confused. Why was she in the enemy's arms? Bahamut, Ren said, from now on, Roy is my master. He's your master too. Ren-sama, are you back to normal? Bahamut asked, a hint of excitement in her voice. She'd been worried about Ren, knowing she'd been corrupted by the otherworld darkness. Yes. Roy saved me. Ren turned to Roy, a sweet smile on her face. Bahamut hadn't seen her smile like that in a long time. Master. Bahamut bowed, kneeling respectfully. The tens of thousands of spirits followed suit, bowing in unison. Roy chuckled and waved his hand. Arise. With Ren subdued, he'd accomplished half his goal. The other half was powering up the girls. The plan was simple, each girl would form a pact with a high-ranking elemental spirit. Then, his peerage would be entirely high-class level. Now that's what I call a power boost. But Ren's subordinates weren't enough. He needed the other 5 elemental lords and their spirits. His next objective was clear, defeat the 5 elemental lords alliance, conquer the elemental spirit world, and claim all the high-ranking spirits for his peerage. Plus, he'd get to avenge Ren. It was a win-win. Let's get out of here, Roy said. Find somewhere to rest. The area was barren, not a good place to relax. Right. The girls agreed. Roy led the spirits to a new location, a picturesque spot by a mountain and a river. They set up camp. That evening, they had another barbecue. I'm attacking the 5 Elemental Lords Alliance tomorrow, Roy announced, handing Ren a grilled fish. I'm with you, Roy, Ren said, taking the fish and smiling. She immediately devoured it. It was her first time trying this kind of food, and she loved it. Roy watched Ren eat several fish, a worried thought crossing his mind. I hope I'm not turning her into a glutton. Then, he glanced at Akame and Kurome. Never mind. I already have enough gluttons in my peerage. Wait, Roy, I thought you were done here? Rias asked, confused. Half done, Roy said. What's the other half? Powering you all up. Powering us up? Yep. You've seen how strong elemental spirits are, right? Form a pact with one, and your power skyrockets. He grinned. So, I'm getting each of you a high-ranking elemental spirit. The girls were touched. Thank you, Roy. Rias looked at him, eyes shining. Ha, no problem. You're mine, after all. Roy grinned, waving it off. Does that include me? Akino asked, her eyes sparkling. Roy paused, then smiled. Of course. Akino's smile widened. Perverted lolicon, Kaneko muttered, unimpressed. Ha, even if you call me that, Kaneko, I won't leave you out, Roy said, patting her head. Kaneko blushed and turned away. The next morning, Roy was woken by the sounds of fighting. Rias and the others were gone. he went to investigate. Seiko and Bahamut were dueling. Roy and Ren's battle yesterday had interrupted their fight, so the two had agreed to a rematch. "Hey, Roy. You're awake." Leon was the first to notice him. "Morning," Roy nodded, watching the fight. Bahamut, a highest-ranking elemental spirit, was incredibly strong. She specialized in magic and could transform into a dragon, making her formidable in close combat as well. Seiko, with her Demon Slayer mark, was much stronger. And her Dragon Slayer sword, Ascalon, gave her an edge against Bahamut. The two were evenly matched. Thunder Breathing, first form, Thunderclap and Flash Eightfold. Thunder Breathing, third form, Thunder Swarm. Thunder Breathing, seventh form. Flaming Thunder God. Seiko fought with all her might. But Bahamut was no ordinary spirit. Dragons were inherently powerful. At full strength, she could even hold her own against a weak ultimate class. Seiko, ultimately, lost. Despite the loss, a satisfied smile graced Seiko's face. An idea struck Roy. "Bahamut," he said, "you acknowledge Seiko's strength, right?" "Yes. To fight me, a Dragon King, with the strength of a mere high-ranking spirit. I acknowledge her." Bahamut, her blue hair and crimson eyes striking, nodded haughtily. "Then, how about becoming her contracted spirit?" Roy asked. Bahamut considered this. "I accept." Roy was her master, and she respected Seiko's strength. Seiko looked at Roy, surprised and delighted. Seiko, work hard. With her, you might even break through to ultimate class level." Roy encouraged her. He wasn't just saying that. Bahamut was a highest-ranking spirit, just a step away from Elemental Lord. Seiko was already high class. Together, they might reach ultimate level. "I will." Seiko nodded seriously. This was a rare opportunity. She had to succeed. "Go, Seiko-Nizan. You can do it, Seiko. I'm so jealous. Seiko always works the hardest." The girls cheered her on. Rias, Akame, Kurom, and the others who were at peak high class were especially excited. If Seiko could break through, maybe they could too. Seiko began the pact ritual with Bahamut. Soon, it was complete. Bahamut merged with Seiko. Their powers combined. A powerful aura erupted from Seiko. The girls cheered. She'd done it. She was at ultimate class. "Congratulations, Seiko. You did it." Roy beamed. "I did." Seiko's smile was radiant as she looked at Roy. She didn't need grand words. She was ready to follow him, even to death. "Oni-chan, me too." Akame tugged on his sleeve. Roy chuckled. "You'll have to wait. Once we defeat the 5 Elemental Lords Alliance, there will be more spirits to choose from." "Okay." Kurom nodded obediently. The other girls relaxed, knowing there were more opportunities to come. "All right, let's get ready to move out." "Yes." They prepared, then set off north with their army of spirits. Several days later, they arrived at a massive mountain. Beyond it lay the 5 Elemental Lords' stronghold. But Roy stopped. He studied the mountain. It was like a giant sword thrust into the earth, radiating a sharp aura. "There's a sword spirit in that mountain," Ren whispered to him. The girls looked at the mountain curiously. "A sword spirit, huh? Interesting." Roy looked at the kilometer-high peak with a smirk. He summoned his Ice Rose sword and swung. Ice Breathing, second form, Ice Dragon Swirl. A blue ice dragon roared as it slammed into the mountain. The earth shook. The mountain crumbled. Rock and dust filled the air. Roy waved his hand, dispelling the debris with a gust of wind. A sword floated in the air. It had a golden hilt and a white blade. Roy's eyes lit up. It was the sword spirit, Terminus Estate. Also known as the world-protecting god, the holy sword that slays demon lords, and other names. It was the protagonist's second sword in the original story. In the original, only Est's avatar was summoned. Her true form remained in the elemental spirit world. As the strongest sword spirit, even the 5 elemental lords and the dark elemental lord were wary of her power. She was, without a doubt, a ultimate class spirit. Perfect. Roy was thrilled. Is that the sword spirit you were looking for? Siko asked. Roy had given her Ascalon, saying he no longer needed it. This sword must be his target. Yep, Roy grinned. She looks tough. And she's coming this way. Mine tugged on Roy's sleeve, pointing. Est had been sleeping. She was furious at being woken so rudely. She flew towards them, ready to attack. Roy summoned his Ice Rose sword and met her charge. Clang! 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 Their swords clashed in the air. Hey, sword spirit, Roy asked as he pressed his attack, easily overpowering her with his superior swordsmanship. Want to be my servant? Insolent fool! I will not spare you, a flat, emotionless, childlike voice echoed from the sword. Roy chuckled. If you become my servant, I'll give you delicious treats. He held out a vanilla ice cream cone. He remembered Est's sweet tooth. Ice cream, tofu, steamed buns, she loved them all. Est's attack faltered as she smelled the ice cream. If you give me that, I'll forgive your intrusion, she said. Sure. Roy smiled, offering the ice cream. With a flash of white light, Est transformed into an adorable white-haired little girl in a white dress. She looked like a doll. She took the ice cream and licked it. Sweet. Est's eyes closed in bliss. If you become my servant, Roy said, holding out a box of cake, I'll give you even more treats. Est's eyes widened at the smell of the cake. Deal. She grabbed the cake and started eating. It was even sweeter than ice cream. She was hooked. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated into One Piece and became a Marine is now on hold, since we've at the end of the story. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if a venerated soul reincarnated in Danmachi world? What if transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.